could record, please, that would be wonderful.
Done.
Thanks. So welcome everyone. Today, August 29th, and we are meeting for our roundtable number 4. Today's agenda is kind of short one. We're giving you a short update on what happened last week when we concluded evaluations, technical evaluations. And then after that, we will talk about the WAGs for rollout and also about node configuration standards and how we can elaborate on recommendations for several type of nodes, API nodes, block producers, and every other type of node. And then also I want to bring some light to the WAGs developer docs and how you can help us by participating in it. I actually didn't share my screen, I just noticed, so I'm going to do it right now. So technical evaluations concluded last week. Our roster is now 36 guilds big. 3 guilds managed to not establish the minimum requirements, and we have 12 standby guilds. And the lowest top 21 guild now has a score of 203.125 points. And not to spoil you, but we received a new guild submission. So we're adding another guild to our roster hopefully soon, which is a Wombat. You might have heard about the guild already. They have a wonderful app and they do a lot of onboarding of new users into the WAGs ecosystem. I think 2 or 3 months ago, they had a wonderful sale on their Dungeon Master assets, which is a dungeon crawler game you can play inside the game. Not wanting to promote too much, but the initial submission report is up on the GitHub, and you can have a look by yourself. Picking up last meeting's topic, we found some inconsistencies in the network with blocks arriving late and sometimes also having a low transaction volume. And it seemed to normalize somehow in the past few days, but now we are back with another problem, with another issue. I think this time around it's EOS DAC, which has an average low transaction rate for the past 3 days. So this is worth looking into. Other than that, we can see that Greymass is having some difficulties at the moment, I think. And also, maybe Michael can explain, there's a very low last block time on your producer as well at the moment, which is not aligned to the rest of the BPs. Can you tell us why that is or what that could be?
I mean, I'm kicking my last block out early. I can speed it up. What is that? 30 milliseconds I need to speed it up? I don't know. I think I've got a final percent of like 3%. I can bump that up to 5. I mean, the whole point of it is to try to, you need to always cut your last block short, get it down the pipe so the next BP in line can receive it, so it doesn't get forked out. Now, it's kind of a percentage of how much time it spends doing its work and then kicks it out. So there's not really at least at this point, there's not a standard defined as to how early or late you should kick your last block out. We tend to suggest 20% on a lot of different chains, which allows you, to kick it out relatively early. I think it was, the 300 milliseconds early. But what happens is when you get really, really heavy network usage, that 20% still may not be enough to overcome whoever's next in line. I can tell you one of the reasons we dropped ours real low is because we were always butted up against Rio in our
Hmm.
schedule. Now, I don't know if we are right now. I mean, it kind of moves around, but it's really hard to get blocks down to Rio. And Igor and I went round and round on that for weeks. And ultimately, I just had to kick it out a little bit earlier to be able to make sure it got down the line before the South America's interwebs is a little slower than everybody. So that's why ours is potentially lower than some others, but I mean, they're all intentionally early. And yes, gray masses
I see.
probably could go a little early and we could go a little later, but this is back to what's the recommended standard is if you want a baseline against everybody, but then to the other side's argument, there shouldn't be a standard. That's one of the knobs that the BPs are supposed to use to tweak the handoffs between their BP. Everybody agree?
I think I could
Disagree?
follow. So what you essentially say is there shouldn't be a standard recommendation for those kind of settings.
We have one that's 20%, 10%, whatever. But if you see somebody with one lower, I mean, it can only go so low. You start kicking it out too early and it becomes a problem. But lower isn't as bad as higher because higher has the tendency to have the problem that we're trying to prevent, which is your block. You did the work, but you couldn't get it across the world in time before the next BP behind you thought you missed it, creates a fork, and then ripple affects the entire chain, rolling
Right.
all the atomics back, rolling all the Hyperion.
Hey, Michael,
Yes.
do you have private peers between your peers? Like for us, we're after US USA is it's Rio, and then it's us, and then Bonnie Block, and then it's EOS that. But we had to have private. They have private peers for us, and vice versa. It helped a lot in the last year, I would say.
Correct. For that same reason that, I mean, we're some of the lucky BPs that kind of bounce these continents. And yes, Igor and I did have to, mostly Igor and I, because that was the hardest hop for us. I was behind like Detroit and Sentinel, which I think was over here on NA. But yes. And then, of course, whenever I moved my BP from one server to the other, guess what had to get repeered? And whenever he moved his BP from one to the other, guess what had to get repeered? So it's kind of, this rabbit hole that you're always going down, but that you and your neighbors should become very good friends. But anyway, does that explain why there's somebody else that's probably got one pretty low too? Who else is there?
Nation. It's nation and you.
I can tell you
I
it's
wa-
probably we're both 3%, and we run that on some networks.
Is it part of EOS Nation's config recommendation that they put on GitHub?
I don't know if it's in their recommendation on GitHub. I can tell you that obviously Matthew and I speak quite a bit, and whenever we were chasing issues, and I want to even say on another chain, we do standardize it at 3% just to kick it out, or standard recommendation, right? I mean, it's always up to the BP what they want to do.
So
Last block is 20 there, so yeah. But I mean, I can tell you it's obviously
lost me.
not 20 because both of I can tell you I think mine's at 3, maybe 5%. And that's why we're both low. And if everybody else is at 20, that's why.
Yeah, I think I'm at 20. I think.
We can bump it back up to 20, but like I say, what happens is the the gain you get from it isn't particularly outweighing the harm that sometimes comes behind it because
Well, I suppose you should just monitor it, right? And when if it happens again, then you make it go lower in order to make sure that you don't badly hand off.
I mean the difference is probably what 50 milliseconds worth of processing time. I mean, I'm happy to, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm going to tend to lead towards kick that block out early and keep it from forking. Y'all know that these micro forks are a pet peeve of mine because it just ripple affects everybody that's layer 2. And we had problems with it, right? I mean, we're on-prem, so we're not sitting on a backbone, and I'm going to Rio a lot of times. That's about as hard as going to Kangaroo Land.
Right. Okay, I don't know what to add to this. Just some observation. Another observation to share with you is that we still are seeing some empty blocks per round. I think this one is Blacklusion for a few days, but I think the pink one here, the purple one here is Wax Sweden. So, do you see any issues on your side, Anders? At the moment, are you experimenting with any configuration or settings, or?
Yeah, we are still investigating. We are testing different settings, and we are in the process of applying the next iterations of test. I built some potentially something that might be useful in the future at a larger scale than just for our internal testing, because I've been digging through a lot of data for this. More on that in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any of the attendees, is anyone running anything else than Wax 404 on the producer? It seems no. So everyone is running Wax 404 currently on the producer, right?
Yeah, it's 4.0.4. So it's 2 dots.
Yeah, but I know some guilds are running still 3.1.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad option.
3.15, 3.1.5.
Exactly.
But the patches and everything.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it depends on what on your BPs, that's fine. Not on your APIs if you want them all to be current.
Yeah, talking about the producer.
Just the BP.
I was talking about the ship node.
How do you know that their block producer is still on 3.1?
Because they told me.
Just reporting? Okay, valid answer. I'm just curious.
I asked and they told me.
Okay.
But I mean, it's okay. I'm the producer.
Okay, that's fine, because we're currently planning to roll out Wax 404. A dot is missing here on the producers until the next full evaluation submission, which is in 6 weeks and 3 days. We will probably add it as a minimum requirement so that everyone needs to upgrade. And we also think that 6 weeks is a reasonable amount of time to get the nodes upgraded. Any objection?
You know that I'm not fully committed to that.
Yeah.
Because we will have version 5 by Q4, and that is a must because of the fast finality. It doesn't mean we have to do it on Q4. Michael disagrees. Speak up.
I mean, it'll be the end of the year before it probably is a reality, even on the most aggressive networks that are pushing it. I will say there are more knobs that are potentially critical to block producers to mitigate some issues only available in 4.0, the way they change subjective billing and windows and stuff like that. Dimitri, I think, was chasing some issues. Do you feel like those?
Yeah. So for us, we had to upgrade to 4 to solve these 12 round empty blocks, 10 to 12 round empty blocks.
Okay.
And low transactions. We had to update to a 4.0.4 and using the new features for the windows and the different strikes. But anyways, the other thing is with 4.0.4, you don't need a new snapshot. So it's actually a very simple and quick update. Like you just stop and start NodeOS. It's not a big deal in my opinion. So I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay.
Mine wasn't that smooth, but yes, it can be. I had different boost libraries.
It was my understanding that version 4 it was just only the only change compared to 3 was some extra monitoring logs and stability.
Oh no, there's new API endpoints.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's...
Yeah, I recall the APIs, but at least for the
on the
producer,
BP, yeah,
I just didn't want to. Yeah, I didn't want to push and upgrade now and do it again in 2 or 3 months, because I understand that you have a lot of infrastructure, but
I don't think you'll be pushing a 5.0 update on Wax in 3 months, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. So maybe I'm too optimistic on B5, right? So
I think yeah,
maybe it's a good idea to push on B4.
From the last Antelope Node Operator Roundtable, I think I heard that 5.0 is scheduled for December, and it's a huge upgrade because of the consensus upgrade. So either we manage to roll out version 4 until then, and then somewhere in January update to 5, or we skip 4 at all.
I don't think anything is released in December because it's December, you know. I mean, if it's not released in November, it won't be released in December. It will be in January, and then as soon as it's released, we have to test it. So yeah, Q1,
we did the last updates and testing in December for testnet before other changes.
I do think we'll make progress. I mean, it won't just completely shut down, but yeah, I don't see Wax being. I would tend to push back a little bit and be like, hey, let's see how all this other dust settles, because we are aggressively pushing to make end of the year in those non-operator meetings. But anyway, so yes, I would say for the BP, 4.0 should be considered. It has the knobs you may need.
Yeah, I had no issues updating my servers. I have all of them on B4, even the ones I have at Wax. So yeah, I recall there was no issues. It just stop and start again.
Oh no, there are some parameters that you might need.
Yeah, well, it's easy to fix.
So at some point we would like to have a version 4 online because of the new API features. So that's a different part, I think, when we want to push every node to be on version 4, especially API nodes to enable those features. So we should probably start with the producer and then have the APIs updated. And then we need to do a lot of changes to our current validation tools to track those new APIs. So it's not that easy of a process, but it needs to start at some point. And if there's no objection from the node operator side, I'd say we can introduce it in the next guidelines, which is then 5.3.
Sorry, this is to track what the BP version by API.
Yeah, first the BPs. We want them to be all on version 4, and then shortly after also the APIs to enable all the API features from version 4, like the get transaction status, for example, which is a huge thing.
You want it done, throw some points on there. We get building quick.
You can avoid the penalty by doing it. If you
Taking
want
away points works as well as granting points, I agree. But if you're going to penalize, I do think it's going to have to be much more automated and tracked. But if you're in this maybe first phase, you could, self-report it, and then they could be, manually tested, I guess. But you put some points to it, and people start responding.
So let's talk about the source of truth here, because how can we properly track that every VP is upgraded? There's no way, right?
Yeah, I mean,
no.
Officially, no. I mean, it's all hidden.
There is no way to validate it.
There are some tools that, are not perfect, but you could use them to better have an idea but they're obviously not ironclad. But yeah, I mean,
Can't the logs spit it out like in an update somewhere in the future? You know, spit out the version in the logs where we can pull it out somehow.
well, that's what I mean. Originally on the EOS, there was a what was called the Heartbeat plugin, and it was designed you could run it on your BP, and it would phone home on chain. Here's all the information about my BP node. Now, as you can imagine, you could very easily fake that information, just like you can fake other things. So it always got this argument about, well, since it's not 100% ironclad, it can't be trusted. So, in the other option is just ask people and hope they don't lie. I mean, there are tools that could make it easier, but they're not guaranteed. But my big proponent is yes, you could enable a plugin that's already built that would phone it home.
Anything that tries to double check this in an automated way or get some kind of proof is a waste of time and energy, because it can be fake somehow. So
just asking them and trusting what they say is okay.
Well, we are in an
versus
environment.
having a system that might actually make it a little easier.
Yeah, and I mean, we are in an environment and trust is very important. I mean, and
so you'll trust my word,
we trust
not
in the
plugin that I run.
Guilds. Yeah, trust your reputation.
Well, no, I mean that's my point. Is that, and I get exactly where you're coming from. Again,
Can we delete that statement from the call, please?
I'm not deleting anything.
Beep it out. Don't censor me. Don't censor me.
I can't believe they said that.
But play some music, DMCA strike.
Yeah, please.
I was probably talking over him anyway, right? But my point is that if you discredit the plugin because you can't trust, but then replace that process with, I'll just ask them and hope that they tell me the truth. Shit, it's a hell of a lot easier for me to lie to your face than it is for me to reprogram a plugin to phone home stats just to fake it. I just anyway.
Okay.
I think guys, like let's say on other chains like Polygon, okay, everyone has telemetry installed, and it displays it on the GUI, on the UI, and I don't think it's a big deal. Honestly, it's not, and it's a guaranteed thing. No one can fake it, and I don't think it's. I mean, anyone can fake anything, but I mean, I don't think it's an overkill thing, So, but I'm not into like heartbeats and API calls and that stuff. That sort of stuff, which can also be fake.
So what are you saying the potential solution is? I guess I missed.
We should maybe see how others are doing it, then again get ideas and come up with something. Then again, it's overkill. I think
I'm generally against of installing any plugins on the producer.
I mean,
for stability issues, for security issues,
probably not an easy thing to just make a decision on if we add something onto the most vulnerable machine we all run.
Exactly.
Again, it's open sourced and compilable. I understand where you're coming from on it, but I tend to lean on the side of why do we make this so hard on ourselves?
Just add it to the bp.json instead.
So you know exactly which version to target with your exploit.
Exactly.
I think in the past we had a GitHub issue where we just asked people to submit their readiness state for the update. And that worked pretty well, and we received also some screenshots regarding that. But yeah, we just had a basic checklist and asked the guilds to include it into their report so that we know if they're ready or not. That's probably the way to go here again. Yeah, but when we are there, you will know how to tell us if your BP is upgraded or not. we will surely find a solution for this, a trustless solution. Talking about submitting information about your nodes, I just want to remind you again that we are approaching the deadline for the report submission for the full evaluation. And in case you missed it, there's an issue on the repository, on the bug skills repository, which explains exactly which metrics we want and how they should be presented. Please don't comment on the issue, but include it inside your report once you're done with your report.
Sorry for the comment.
Yeah. So, sorry for the comment. Yeah, no problem. It's nice to see that, but we don't need the comment actually. And what we else don't need is what we received here with the first report from EOS Amsterdam, which is the metrics, but broken down per hour. So that's an extra effort for us then to break it calculate the 7 days then. So if you can just submit the 7 days metrics.
Just for a point of reference, it crushes my reporting node to do 7 days. I'm going to have to throw an I9 at this thing to be able to not have the elk stack completely shit out trying to run more. 7 days is the max that we can get out of it. It's a massive amount of information that y'all are asking to provide these statistics and stuff on. That's why the hourly is so much easier, because most things don't hold that many millions and millions and millions of granular details.
Yeah, but an hour could be a little bit inaccurate, as the traffic is sometimes concentrated in the evening hours, European time, and in the morning hours. So that's where we need an average of, like, let's say 7 days to have a good picture.
I'm just trying to remind you of the perspective that, I mean, we're running a data warehouse now just for reporting on the bots that are smashing the shit out of my APIs. You know how frustrated I was about it before? Now I'm even more pissed off.
So in case you are rejecting some of the bots, we are interested only in the successful calls.
Oh, well, that's half the fun, is when you hit rate limits and they keep smashing.
Sure, but the rate limit is HTTP 429. So can you filter?
I get it, but for the sake of the argument, I still have to report against those. They all get logged. I mean, I'm ripping through raw proxy response logs. Guess what all is getting logged? All the denials and all the rejections and all of everything. So I get that the end result of the query is where status equals 200, but the way DB queries work is select all, then filter.
So yeah, sure.
These are millions and hundreds of millions of records for a week.
Yeah, that's gotta be pain, but we need to have this.
So I missed because I provide this detail every month, but I'll have to just format it to how you want to see it. Is this in 5.2 general guidelines? I'm just looking.
We just sat together today and finalized the 5.2 guidelines. Okay. That's a good point to talk through for a second. Okay. So we are close to releasing a 5.2 guidelines with only very minor changes. Or major change. We put them in major changes. So the score threshold is increased to 125 from 120, and we still have a minimum requirement for the hotfix applied in there. But that's it from 5.2. also a minor change to the wording regarding the price oracle, because we currently have an issue that only the top 30 guilds on mainnet are able to push prices to the oracle, because the oracle is limited at 30 guilds. So we need to increase the limit to have everyone on the network submit prices to the Delphi oracle.
I mean, there's a security reason that they do that. That if you allow everybody to feed, anybody can start skewing the averages. That's why it's supposed to only be from your top trusted sources, was the way it was written. Not to say we can't. I'm just saying that on EOS, I was fighting to be able to feed it, and I wasn't high enough in the lineup. And that was always the if I can just register a BP and immediately start feeding in bad data, and then register another one, you can start skewing the oracle. It's supposed to be from your top trusted entities on the chain. So if you open it wide, you could potentially allow skewing.
Well, the plan is not to open it wide to anybody, but to just limit it to guilds that have a record on the guilds.org smart contract. And then only allow guilds that are not retired.
Oh yeah, if you update the contract to not just be purely off of rank to...
No, we need to adjust the Delphi Oracle contract, and that's why we need to talk to Aloha about it.
So yes, that's that would be the stipulation on that, and just so y'all at least would have vetted the account to be in that table, right? Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to provide some context as to why it had that hard limit on there.
Okay.
Got it.
So just sorry, Yana. So just talking about the statistics that you wanted, is that for this? Is that for this response? This API usage stats?
Yeah, but don't respond to the issue, but include it in.
So tomorrow when you fill out that report, yes.
So
okay. I don't know why I missed that.
I think you did it last time.
I think you might have been traveling whenever it was discussed, just so you know.
Yeah, no, I put it in, and I actually have got an Elastic Stack that gathers all the data from our HA proxy. So I've got a lot of detail, and I do a community update every month that's even more detail than this. So there's heaps in there, but and I look at it for 14 days, not 7 days. So I'll just need to go and thank you. I'll need to go and adjust it to what you want to see, but like I break it all down. Like I've got it all there, even what kind of requests we've got.
Yeah, I think that's lovely and very extensive.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I need to do it again for the format that you want. I didn't actually see the format that you wanted, because it was, you said you wanted 7 days. You said you wanted specifically broken down between those 3 types of queries. Yeah. I've got that information, but I need to go and get it. Okay, so where's the link to this?
I'm relaying it to the chat here, but it's inside the report GitHub.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Anyone else with questions on this topic or any difficulties to accomplish it? You can share it now. I guess no. So yeah, this is due in 2 days. We are on August 29th.
And if anybody wants to figure out how to get this kind of data, I wrote an article on how to set up your own Elastic Stack to do the same thing. So go look at our tech guides. Yeah, I'll show you how to set it up and customize it so you got your own dashboard that you can run reports from.
Don't use a potato.
It's actually, I don't have anything insane. I think it's got 8 cores, 32 gigs of RAM, and 2 terabytes of NVMe, and it works fine.
For an API reporting server that you're reporting on a
Okay, well,
orchestration bot.
I feed all the HA proxies into it. I don't actually only feed Wax. I feed EOS and Telos and FIA. Everything goes in there.
Right.
And it usually it's not so much the horsepower; it's the disk. You run out of disk. That's why I only keep 2 weeks, because 2 weeks is about a terabyte, or like 1.5 terabytes.
I already threw an 8 terabyte in to address that, but yes, it's crazy amount of data warehouse that you're doing just to be able to report
reports
on who's beating the shit out of your API.
I don't keep the content of the headers. It's just the headers that I keep. I don't keep the actual content of the queries. So that saves a lot of space. And I know, like, when I was doing some troubleshooting with Eric about a year back, we turned it on to get what the actual data was inside the query, and then suddenly you just like a terabyte a day.
We do keep the parameters because it helps me identify who's hitting it for what. Like, I know all the bot games because they're smashing our APIs with them.
So I keep the referrers so I can see where it came from, but I mean, a referrer can be also spoofed. Like, but yeah, anyhow, it's just, I just wanted to know what was going on, and it was a nice little thing to see what's happening on any time, and that's the kind of information that that the OIG is looking for. That you can easily get that kind of stuff.
Wonderful. So now that we talked briefly about the 5.2, I'm giving you the chance for feedback or questions on this. Anything in particular you want to discuss about the 5.2 guidelines? Something you want to mention, or anything you're not really happy with?
Yeah, I think I should get more points. No reason.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too, but it's a new initiative, and we need to coordinate it, and we need to be aligned on how to pull this off. Because I started it in the same repository as we wrote like an early draft about how we imagine task forces or working groups to work on Wax, because we had some inquiries in the past weeks from guilds that are eager to do research or experimenting with the nodes. And right now, the financial environment is not the best for this kind of work. And we still want this to happen. And we actually have a way to incentivize guilds, which is OIG points. In case it's too small for your screen, I just zoomed in. So we called it like Wax Task Force. Remember, this is an early draft. We don't, this is not final. But essentially, you guys can, or we imagine that you guys gather in groups of 5 guilds, of up to 5 guilds, probably also less, and you self-organize and collaborate and agree on how to distribute the points for your research and experimenting effort. We'd expect such a task force to last for 6 to 12 weeks, like 1 or 2 evaluation periods. You can propose the topic that you want to research, and then you can conduct the research and discussion. But you should also keep in mind that we want you to produce an educational product, so something that can be consumed by others in the network, and the learning and the knowledge can be shared. The communication shall be carried out publicly, of course, for sensible information in the private channel or group. But we'd also expect a leader in those groups to coordinate the group and report to the OIG whenever something has been accomplished. You can decide on your roles and responsibilities inside those working groups. And at the end, the incentive is OIG points. And let's say you propose a research about BP configuration standards and recommendation. And we can agree then together on the incentive, in this case, like 10 OIG points, which then will be distributed among all the collaborators. And you should self-organize this allocation of points based on contribution, effort, and participation. And then to note, the deliverables should be an educational product or light research paper, or even a repository containing recommendations and configuration files. What do you think about it? Is it something that fits your needs when it comes to experimenting and researching stuff?
May I? Well, this looks like a rather great endeavor, but I think this is kind of a point that can be abused for the sake of getting points. It requires scrutiny from you guys, I think, and proper analysis whether the work fits the requirements of this WAX task force group. And in my opinion, I think there should be some grace time which allows to evaluate the work done by this task force group if it's not defined in this proposal in the first place. Because I'm sorry, I didn't read it fully yet, but it looks to me like it's kind of requires some guardrails in order to serve the purpose.
Sure. I can imagine that this product then and the findings or the research paper then should be presented on our roundtable. And that's where we find out if others in the network acknowledge the effort or have objections with the result. But surely it's the OIG that needs to agree on the topic and on the incentive. So you can propose an incentive of 20 points, but we will most probably reject it if it's too much points, or if we don't see that every candidate in this task force is a good fit for this kind of research. But on the other side, it also feels like we shouldn't be afraid of those of people not carrying out properly or distributing points among friends. We will not let that happen, so we will control that.
I think the organization that's probably going to be right for, I don't know, disputes, disagreements. I mean, if there's only 5, like say you wanted to get a group of tech nerds together, somebody's going to have to choose who is only going to be those 5 and tell others that they can't contribute, and then getting points for it, and then somebody disputing whether those people actually contributed. I applaud it. I mean, there's initiatives that definitely I think could fall into that. It just seems right for, oh man, y'all are going to have to heavily scrutinize it. And even no matter how heavily y'all scrutinize it, it's probably still going to have a lot of, one thought might be, it's popping in my head, no clue if it works. Like proposing an initiative and maybe the BPs, voting, officially, unofficially, who would they like to have if there were 5 slots, who would be the people you would want on that task force, in your opinion? But would that maybe help address some of the concern about favoritisms and milking points and stuff like that. If it were somewhat topic driven and member driven by us, the VP. Totally just brainstorm.
Interesting. I mean, you could obviously pull in a guild, a friend guild, into a constellation of 5 if you are 4 people, just to distribute some points across your friends.
But typically, my working group members are also going to be probably my best friends because those are the ones that I work with. That's why I'm like, it's totally, even though they may be the most qualified, if they're also my best friend, is that right for, you know what I mean? That's why I'm like, oh man, it's a glutton for punishment. But if it were pseudo, like a board type, you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how to make it fairer, maybe.
Okay, so let's say you have a topic in mind you want to research and you think we need it. You should probably just propose that we need that and what exactly we need. Just describe the project and then ask others if they want to contribute and if they can, and in which way they can. Or in some cases, you might need other people, just other nodes or node producers to test your stuff and experiment with your stuff. So that's where others get involved. But
yeah, well, I mean, just think of like technical. Like, say I don't like Anders, right? Obviously, they are a very strong technical presence. So if I form a technical working group and I decide I don't want to work with the Swedes, the rest of the network may be like, man, if I had a task force that was on the technical, that might be who I'd want to sit on there. Y'all might not want me on there because I don't ever shut up. Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, by presenting the result, you should also be able to reasonably explain who was involved and how much and what exactly they did. Like, not an exact breakdown of hours that have been put in, but there's
You're talking about on the
responsibilities.
backside of it, on the like the reporting and whatnot. I'm more brainstorming about that discussion up front, the formation of that particular task force topic. Does that make sense? Present
Yeah,
it,
okay.
get people who want to participate in it, and then gather feedback of, okay, VPs, this is who's going to be doing this task force for us. Who do y'all think should be there? And make it a more open framework as opposed to me going and picking my friends, which are probably also the most qualified. Would that make it any better? Or not? I don't know. It definitely doesn't make it any cleaner.
So would you suggest we need approval by all the other guilds to make to form a task force? Like, you're proposing a task force with guild XYZ, and you need like 15 or 21 other guilds to approve your task force?
Something like that. Because I mean, in theory, all the other guilds are going to have to kind of agree that those points are going to be given out. You know, it's ultimately are, you know, against their points. So that's where that idea came from. Is
technically
or control.
Technically, we don't need to limit it to 5 guilds, and we could just make it open. Everybody can contribute, but then the participants still need to agree on how they distribute the point allocation among each other.
Correct. I get it. That's what it's a double-edged sword, and that's. I mean, you don't want more. I mean, to be honest with you, you don't want to have to take on more than 5. Any working group probably bigger than that probably isn't. You know, I mean, but which 5 are those? I mean, the 5 I pick. I think I picked the best 5, but that may not be because I forget Anders every time. That may not be what everybody else says. Totally just throwing it out there because he does have a valid point that it may not be right for abuse, but it definitely is right for contention in my mind.
I get it. So this is a suggestion how we can move on with topics like your latest inquiry to to develop a set of recommendations and configurations for block producers and APIs and all other types of nodes on WAX. So you want to take on that task, and probably there's a few others. How can we make that happen so that you proactively can propose things you want to enhance, and we can have that done, and there's no dispute about the incentive for this?
I'll stop talking. What's other people?
Look, I don't know. A lot of these working groups, they're organic the way they spring up because people want to put the effort in.
Yeah.
When there's an incentive for people to jump into every incentives that there's available, it might not be the most productive. I don't know, man.
I agree.
I mean,
That's how I struggle.
we're working on things already just because we're working on things.
Yeah.
How you, I don't know. I think trying to bring structure to something that is organic, just by its very definition, is a bit tricky. I'm sorry. I don't know how to make it all easy. Unless everybody can just go for it and do whatever they want to do, and at the end of it, if the product is good enough, then maybe points are awarded.
Yes, good point, actually. I think this might work if point distribution is being done only if the task force group is successful on the topic of this task force group. So basically, if it's just formed and receives points for nothing, just being formed, it's not good, I would say, use of points. But if the project was successful and the task force group made some product or some results, positive results, which received by most of the community or users, it's worth actually giving points for this. So it requires actually to do some effort, prolonged effort, to receive those points, and it might actually be a blocker for those who want to milk those points, because it requires some time to actually achieve this. And
Sure. That's a solution to this would probably be to credit the incentive after the work is done, so you don't receive the points prior to the results. So that's where you do the work first and then get rewarded for it. If in the meantime you run into disputes and you never finish the effort, I mean that's bad, but
yeah,
that's a possible result of such a task force. Okay, anyways, let's skip that for now, but we are thinking in that direction. And if you have any good ideas and any input to give to this, please comment on this discussion. It's also inside the WAG skills repository. For now, you can add any remark you want to this. And maybe we'll have it updated until the next roundtable, which collides with our full evaluation. So it could be also the next one after that. Okay, we are 1 hour in, and I didn't even touch the last topic, which is the WAX developer docs participation. So as you noticed, we recently updated the developer docs and added a whole bunch of new content about WAX, and also we are up to date in terms of articles for the WAX Hyperion. Oh, This one is broken, excuse me. Or we just chatted about this. So here are the guides. Those are all the EOSphere guides on how to set up your nodes. And we bring that all into the developer docs. But we need some help, especially with the build section of the documentation, because our tooling has evolved. Some of the articles are outdated, referring to older WAX versions or older tooling that is no longer in use. And this section desperately needs some love. So I would just ask you to visit the developer docs, and if you can give us any feedback on how to improve things, very much appreciated. You can also just help us improve the pages. There's a link at the bottom which brings you to the repository. There you can just apply your changes and commit to the repository. We've even outlined some of those sections with additional content we want to add in the future, or content that we need to transform. So please also have a look at those discussions and see if there's anything you're very familiar with and you can add to the docs. Because great docs mean a great developer experience, and that enables even more developers to come and build on WAX. So we need to do this. Also, if you find some mistakes or just want to talk about any topic, just open an issue in this repository and we take care of it. Cool. And that's where we can conclude today's roundtable. So I'd ask Anders to stop the recording for now.